All right, so chemists, what we're doing with this lesson is we're talking about the idea of solution concentration. Now, this is something that you guys understand sort of on some level, because when you talk about sort of making drinks like Kool-Aid, you can talk about how concentrated the Kool-Aid is. So we need to start understanding the vocabulary. So a solution is a mixture of two or more substances. A solution is a mixture of two or more substances that is uniform throughout. Things like, salt water that you made in class, salt and sugar water. As long as it's uniform throughout, as long as everything's dissolved and you can't see any of the chunks anymore, that's a solution. Sand in water is not a solution because you can still see the individual chunks of sand. It doesn't dissolve all the way. So, and to understand this, we need to know what the solute and solvent mean. Solute is the substance that is dissolved. And the solvent is the substance that does the dissolving. So what this means is the solute is when you're making salt water, the solute is something like the salt, or the sugar water is the sugar. And the solvent, in this class, we're only going to make solutions with water as the solvent, but we're going to talk about things that, other things that can be the solvent, like nonpolar substances, if we want to go back there, which, helps us go back to understand intermolecular forces. So, a solution is saturated when no more solute can dissolve. So when you were making your salt and sugar solutions, you kept pouring it in, it would dissolve. At some point, no more solid would dissolve. It would be saturated. So we say a saturated solution is a solution that contains the maximum amount of solute for a given amount of solvent. So you can make saturated solutions of things that you dissolve a lot of. Calcium chloride is something you can dissolve tons and tons of moles, like 5, 6, 7 moles of calcium chloride per liter. But you can still make it saturated. Things that don't dissolve very much at all, it's very easy to make a saturated solution. So the way we talk about concentration is in this term called molarity, which is defined by this big M. And it's equal to number of moles of solute per 1 liter of solution. And the units are moles per liter. Remember when I said that we're going to keep using moles? Moles aren't going away. We'll need them for when we talk about acids and bases. We'll need them when we do something called stoichiometry in a little bit. So this idea of molarity tells you how concentrated a solution is. So higher molarity equals more concentrated. Now, what was interesting from the lab you did where you dissolved the salt and the sugar is your molarity of the salt was higher. You were able to dissolve more moles of salt than you were of sugar. However, the mass of sugar you dissolved was more because the molar mass is so much higher of sugar than it is of salt. So when we talk about which solution was more concentrated, well, the salt solution was more concentrated because we were able to get more moles dissolved per liter. So concentration is just a measure of the amount of solute dissolved in a given volume of solution. All right. So wrapping this one up, how can you keep track of compounds when they're in solution? Well, when two or more substances mix together uniformly at molecular, ionic, or atomic levels, they form a solution. And the concentration of a solution can be expressed in moles per liter. This is also called the molarity of a solution, or M. So there are other ways of expressing concentration, like grams dissolved. There's also something called molality. But what we're going to use solely is this molarity, idea of molarity, which is moles per liter.